This is the example video for satisfying an inequality. So remember, we're just trying to find a point that, or an ordered pair that when we plug in for x and y makes my inequality true. So I've got a couple tricks that I'll share with you in this video. So my first trick, looking at this equation, or this inequality, we've got y is less than or equal to negative 5 over 3x plus 3. So I have a feeling most of you are looking at this and going, oh boy, we have to deal with fractions. Okay? There is a way that we don't have to deal with fractions though. If this x were a 0, my fraction would go away because anything times 0 is 0, so this would just disappear. So I'm going to start by putting my parentheses up here. Remember, x comes before y. So I want to plug in a 0 for x to get rid of that fraction. So when I do that, I get y is less than or equal to 0 plus 3. So when I simplify this a little further, I get y is less than or equal to 0 plus 3, which is 3. So now this tells me I need a y that is less than or equal to 3. So you could pick any point in the entire world. You could pick 2, you could pick 0, you could pick negative 5, you could pick negative a million if you wanted. Okay? As long as that number is not greater than 3, it will be satisfied. So I'll pick negative 2. And this is a point that will satisfy my linear inequality. Pause if you need more time. I'm moving on to the next one. Okay, same deal here. I'm going to make my parentheses. And I want to get rid of this fraction. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I like to get rid of it. So I'm going to make my x 0. And when I make my x 0, I get y is greater than or equal to 0 minus 1. So when I evaluate this further, I get y is greater than or equal to negative 1. So now I'm looking for some y coordinate that is greater than or equal to negative 1. Okay, so any number that is greater than or equal to negative 1, I'll pick 100. Perfect. Okay, now for number 3. So for number 3, more of the same. I'm going to make my parentheses. And I'm going to make this x a 0. So when I do that, I'm making my x a 0. I get y is less than 0 plus 4. 0 plus 4 is 4. So we are looking for some y value that is less than 4. So any number that's less than 4, how about 3? Just like that, I have found a point that is in my shaded region, a point that satisfies that linear inequality. Okay, so number 4, we're going to start to look at standard form equations. Okay, so we've got 3x minus 5y is less than 25. Okay, so when we have an inequality in standard form, I like to use common sense here. Okay, so x, y. So I know here that if my x were really big, I'd have a really big number right here. So let's say I take x and I make it 100. Okay, so if I make x 100, I've got 300 minus 5y is less than 25. Okay, so I've got 300 right here. So I know if y is also some big number, I'm going to be way less than 25. Okay, so how about I make y 100 as well? So if I do that, I get 300 minus 500 is less than 25. So when I do 300 minus 500, I get negative 200 is less than 25. So of course this is true, because negative 200 is way less than 25. There's no doubt about it. So the point that satisfies that this linear inequality is 100, 100. Okay, all about common sense for standard form. Okay, number 5. So let's take a look at what this line would look like when graphed. So you don't have to do this portion right here. So we know that whenever we have x equals something, or x in some inequality sign, it will be a vertical line through that point. Okay, so in this case it's going through 2. So here we have x is greater than 2. So we are looking at all the points where our x is greater than 2 over here. Okay, so when we're coming up with a point, we just need some x coordinate that's greater than 2. So how about 5? Let's pick 5. So if we pick 5, we're over here. It doesn't matter how far up or how far down we go. We will be in this shaded portion. So for y, let's pick negative 1. And when we do that, we are still in this shaded portion. So this is a solution that works for us. On to the last one. Okay, same thing here. If I make a graph of this line, I know that whenever I have y equals, or y with some inequality sign and a number, that I'm going to have a horizontal line. Okay, just like that. So here I'm looking for all the points of y that are less than negative 3. So that would be all these points down here. So I just need some y coordinate that is less than negative 3. Okay. So one thing to note here, when we do actually start graphing linear inequalities, because of this sign, this is actually supposed to be dotted, but I won't get too far into that right now. So I will pick some point for y that is less than negative 3. So how about I pick negative 10. Okay, so I've got negative 10. So if I were to go down to negative 10, I'd be somewhere down here, still in the shaded portion of, or shaded side of the line. It doesn't matter how far left or right I go. So x could be any value. So how about for x this time I pick 7. When I do that, I know I'm in the shaded portion. So this is a point that satisfies my linear inequality. So at this point, I would move on to the practice for satisfying an inequality.